He worked a lot. He wasn't a lot home, but I had a really good father. I have a really good mother. I actually have another business on the side, and I'm doing that together with my mother, so I'm really blessed. None of them have done drugs or alcohol or crazy things. So, but there's also where the danger lies, in my opinion. That's the second part. That's what I was telling you. There's two different kind of flip sides to everything, I guess. Because for me, I just lulled away a little bit and just, life is nice and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just, I'm getting by. I'm happy. It's good. And I think actually the majority of the people are like that. They're just living life, just going with the stream. And sometimes there's a storm and you just hold on and scream and, how do you make it or not? And then you come up on top and you keep just going. There's nothing that changes that. And, then it's difficult to say, okay, now I want to change and I want to upgrade my life and I want to, go towards that fearless life. Yes. So you have a lot of experience with I'm assuming from what I've read from you and what I've seen from you, with different kinds of people with different kinds of backgrounds. Yes. So what is your system and what is your message towards the, let's say, normal average men, to give it a name?
For sure. Yeah, I love that. So first of all, I want to clarify one thing. And I talked a lot about kind of like the pain of my past. And I'm not saying that you have to have pain in your past in order to become motivated, right? Or to have a struggle in your past to have an opportunity to become fearless. There's a lot of people that had similar, maybe very comfortable childhoods and great relationship with their parents. And yet they still are in a position where something happened that created a decision that led to a limiting belief that's holding them back right now, right? An example of this could be, I've studied a lot of different forms of psychology and influence, and one thing that I've studied is neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. And it's fascinating because I've learned that people go through these significant emotional events of their life. Now, it doesn't mean it has to be traumatic, right? It could be the most basic, kind of common thing, yet as a child, our unconscious mind creates this story and attaches meaning to something that I'm not enough, or I'm unlovable, or I'm not worthy of financial success, or whatever that is. It could be a pattern you picked up from a parent, right? And to have the tools to be aware of what that is, and then tools to reverse it. So what I would say is step number one to your question is, how do you do this, is start telling the truth. Start telling the truth. A lot of people are wanting to keep up this certain image that we have the perfect career and the perfect relationships and the perfect health, when in truth, we are all going through challenges, right? And the more open, the more vulnerable, the more real you are about that, the more you're going to be able to stand courageously in the face of those fears. What most people would say would be, well, just go do that thing that scares you and try to think that it's not scary, right? And what I would say is actually the opposite. So whatever it is that person who's watching this is afraid of right now, what I would do is I want you to actually define in detail what your worst nightmare is of that fear happening. Like, go into painstaking detail. So this is very counterintuitive. Most people think just positive think, and I don't believe in that, right? So envision, like, what's the worst case scenario? Let's say somebody is wanting to build a business and they have a great, steady income from their job. Their fear is what? Losing that income, right? But let's go a layer deeper. Is that really their fear? No, then you go deeper and you find that their fear is maybe not being able to provide for their family, maybe losing their home, losing their quality of life, not being a good role model to their kids. So I want you to take that fear and I want you to define exactly what it is. That's step one. Number two is I want you to list out all the things that you could do to prevent that fear from happening. Because every single one of us have had fears that we put in measures in place where we're like, okay, cool, I'm going to do this so that doesn't happen. Right? So come up with a list of what you could do, who you could be, who you could surround yourself that would prevent that worst case scenario from happening. And then let's imagine the worst case scenario happens. Let's look at that and say, if it happens, what could I do to repair the damage? So step number one is define the fear. Step number two is list out what you can do to prevent it. And step number three is list out what you can do to repair it. Because we've all had fears come to reality, and we realize that we've all made it through, right? People have had bankruptcies, people have had divorces, people have had health scares, and people make it through that because that's who we are as human beings. We're meant to persevere. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that I would do, last thing, would be I really want you to look at the cost of not doing that thing that scares you. If you can have the cost way more than the benefit, than the risk of doing it. Like if you look at it and you say, you know what, I've discovered that I'm not happy with my job. Right? I want to be a great parent. I love my kids, but no matter what I do, when I go in and I work 50 hours a week, I'm just miserable. Well, guess what? Your kids are noticing that, aren't they? So what is the cost of 5, 10, 20 more years in this soul-sucking job? How is that going to impact your kids and their path? When you can look at the cost of inaction being greater than the cost of action, you take courageous action and you literally become fearless. Exactly. Does that help?
No, that's perfect. That definitely helps. I appreciate that explanation.